Joining us now, RJ Hauman. RJ from FAIR. RJ, read your press release yesterday. Shall we say scathing?
Yeah, a little disappointing what happened yesterday, if you want me to unpack it for you guys.
I want you to unpack it, RJ, only the way RJ can do it.
Right. No, so I think everybody remembers, listen, under this COVID crisis, President Trump has taken some essential steps on the immigration front. I think everybody remembers last month he put American workers first by pausing guest worker admissions to the country with tens of millions of American workers unemployed. That's something he had to do. He did it, and he was worthy of praise. Well, in early July, I think it was July 6th or July 7th, actually, ICE made a decision to deny visas to international students who are taking only online classes. Well, first, open borders advocates, corporate interests, and universities flipped out, obviously, because ICE was behind it. But you want to know why ICE was behind it?
Why?
They got behind this program, doing the guidance post 9/11 when one of the hijackers came in under a student visa. We needed ICE to oversee the program to make sure there wasn't much fraud. But listen, if you're coming here as a foreign student, all colleges do is charge you astronomically high tuition rates because of the residency component. Listen, if you're a student and you're taking online classes, you don't need to be here. But all these people come in from all over the world, over 1 million a year, because we are one of the only nations that floats potential employment under the OPT program and a path to permanent residency if you come here. And a couple points I want to make here, John, to show the priorities of these far-left college professors and administrators. Listen, what happened yesterday was triggered by a lawsuit in a Massachusetts district court led by Harvard and MIT. Other big business groups filed amicus briefs backing up what they were doing, such as the U.S. Chamber and other schools all the way around the country. I don't remember when Harvard, MIT, and other schools were advocating for American students or even these foreign students back in March. Like, do you remember when all these schools gave students 1 week to evacuate their dorms mid-semester? Again, where was concern about international students and where they had to go then? They all of a sudden just advocated for this because it threatens their bottom line. These schools rely on billions of dollars in tuition from these students, again, because they're not coming here just to study. They want to come here to work. American students, they study abroad. I studied abroad, but I simply studied abroad. I wasn't going to try to work in Europe. People are taking advantage of our programs. They need to be reformed. Again, administration took a solid step, and they simply backed down after pressure from business interests and these colleges who hate everything the president does. I don't get why he bows down to them when, again, these tech companies and the colleges, they hate everything he does on the immigration issue. Now we're a little bit worried. Is he going to listen to them when it comes to gutting the essential provisions in his immigration pause EO that happened last month? Because they're lobbying pretty hard here in Washington right now. We're going to keep up our pressure, but again, this is extremely disappointing on the immigration front right now.
RJ Hauman, Senior Communications
Government Relations Director.
Senior Government Relations Director, FAIR, Federation for American Immigration Reform. RJ, there's some hand-wringing now about the president's coming executive order on immigration. Now, back a couple years ago, the president offered a deal on immigration to the Democrats, and I supported the deal because I understand you have to compromise. Once the Democrats took over the House, it is what it is, and elections have consequences. And his deal was, give me the funding for the wall. I want to get that done. I want to change legislatively immigration reform as we know it, get rid of chain migration. I want to go to a merit-based system better than Canada and Australia, same principle but better. In return for that, for a permanent legislative change, I'll find a way to keep the DACA people here, because they're not kids. We have to stop saying that. They're 35 years old. Yeah. Keep the DACA residents here, find a pathway to citizenship. That's our deal. The Democrats rejected it. Now he's saying in an EO he might do it anyway. What do you make of this? And is there reason to be concerned?
Back on that front, too. Listen, this all started, obviously, with the Telemundo interview on Friday.
Yes.
Again, where President Trump basically said, listen, we've gotten assurances from the White House. We've unpacked this as well. Maybe he was conflating an EO and potentially an unrelated EO and then potentially going down a path with Congress again to come to a deal. But, listen, first, President Obama did DACA via an executive action. and it was illegal. Trump can't go beyond that. I mean, that wouldn't be Obama 2.0. That would be Obama in steroids. That's something he cannot do. It would undermine everything his administration has said since he was sworn in. But listen, as you kind of mentioned, over the past few years, Democrats and their aligned groups have received offer on top of offer from the Trump administration. They've rejected him voting, rejected him immediately, to give an amnesty to a small amount of these illegal aliens in exchange for only a handful of desperately needed reforms. I mean, yes, some of them were essential, but we wanted them to go beyond. They still rejected it. Every offer, immediately rejected. Why would that suddenly change in an election year when they're looking at themselves ahead in a lot of polls? I mean, the only option for Trump to do right now is to rescind the program in a manner that adheres to administrative law, like the Supreme Court in their flawed ruling instructed him to do. Listen, Democrats aren't even coming close to a smoke-filled back room in the Capitol to negotiate on a deal. If somebody like Jared Kushner or somebody who's a rookie in Washington in the White House thinks that, they're sorely mistaken. Biden is just letting the clock tick. He thinks he's going to win, and like he's already said, with his crazy psycho immigration plan that he's rolled out, that he's going to drop a mass amnesty bill on day one. Why are they going to come to the table and deal when they don't control two chambers? It makes no sense. This is something that would betray your base, Mr. President, and not get you any new votes in suburban enclaves or with open borders people or people that came here illegally. They hate you anyway.
So is he actually going to do this, you think?
I say absolutely not, and we're urging them not to. Again, all they should do is simply rescind the program. Listen, upholding the rule of law is more important than what you think is best politically. Okay, everybody in the White House avoids him. Don't touch the immigration issue, Mr. President. Don't touch it, even though it's the issue that got you there on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But again, this is an illegal program. Even some of the justices that didn't rule in the administration's favor acknowledged that. They just simply didn't like how they went about it after, obviously, Elaine Duke, who was head of DHS at the time, another swamp creature, undermined it, weakened how they rescinded it. So it's simple. They just need to adhere to administrative law. All they do is do a public comment period and things like that. It'll take a little bit, but they know what they have to do, and the clock is ticking.
Let me read a text here I got from Barry in Weir's Cave, Virginia, RJ. He says, John, the decision to withdraw the student visa issue is proof that the liberal education system and Wall Street still control Washington. President Trump is being undermined by his close advisors, including Jared Kushner. Total cave-in. Barry in Weir's Cave. How do you respond to that?
No, yeah, hey, John, there's so many people, obviously, within the administration that are obviously so aligned with the business lobby, who is so reliant on cheap foreign labor, and obviously college administrators as well. Again, we see this. The two biggest areas on this front have been big tech, again, who are trying to suppress free speech, who go after President Trump at every step of the way, and obviously colleges that are far left, and everybody there hates the guy. I think Harvard, a couple months ago, had put out a faculty, it was in the Harvard Crimson, it was like a faculty poll. How many are conservative? Only 1%. I mean, again, these people don't like you. Don't cater to them. Listen to your base. Again, and we've seen this was a prime opportunity, like I said earlier, to go after these colleges. The fact that professors at Yale said, we'd go out in the snow to teach these foreign students if we had to. We are willing, every professor was willing to be there and teach them all in person. What about the American students? If you're willing from a health perspective to teach these foreign students in person, why not the American students as well? So why cave to people like that when you can call them out? If anything, what they did here was encouraging colleges to reopen because they are so obsessed with foreign students coming here, taking slots from American students, from prospective American students, and putting billions in their coffers so they can renovate a hall.
I mean, RJ, you absolutely nailed it. Anything these professors or colleges say, why should we do anything they want? But this has got to be the dynamic duo from hell, college campuses, college administrators, and Goldman Sachs. I mean, you can't get, it's like the devil and his demons coming together. Both of these are just horrible. Ken in Chesapeake, Virginia says, John, this is not disappointing, it's BS. But look, we had Steve Bannon on the other day, very upset about this. If the president caves on DACA, I mean, he's got nowhere to go. I mean, he will lose the election because you were right, RJ, when you came on and said this was not just, one issue he talked about. This was the centerpiece of his campaign when he came down that escalator, right? He said, I'm going to stop this nonsense. No amnesty. Came right down. He said, hey, no amnesty. Well, no amnesty means no amnesty, because every time we've done amnesty without any legislation that went with it, it backfired. See Reagan 86. Again, I was in favor of the deal when he proposed it to the Democrats, because I said, okay, I get the DACA thing. I'll give that up. I'll give them the amnesty, whatever they call it, pathway to citizenship over 10 years. It's still amnesty. I'll give that if I can get long-term, not an executive order, legislative reform that stops chain migration, that stops illegal immigration, that goes to a merit-based system, that reduces the numbers of these H-1B visas, work visas. If I can get legislative reform on that, I can go with it. But we're never going to get that. And why should the Democrats do that when they think they're going to win everything?
Yeah, John, it's too late. Let me just take you back a little bit too. I mean, I don't know again if Jared and some other people within the White House just forget due to a fast news cycle. Again, every offer Democrats rejected. But let me tell you what they should have done, and we wouldn't even be in this situation. They should have done what Biden is about to do. When President Trump got sworn in, he should have immediately acted, put a bill on the floor in Congress and say, we need these reforms and we need them now. Democrats were quivering after that loss. They were like, oh my gosh, we're screwed for the next 4 years. They would have taken something with a slight little amnesty thing and all the reforms we wanted. They would have taken it. But you know what President Trump did? He listened to the swamp creatures he immediately hired and outsourced his policy-making agenda to Republican establishment hero Paul Ryan. And he started enacting policies and pursuing things that didn't even slightly resemble what President Trump ran on. And then when he finally tackled immigration, maybe a year or so later, it was too late. And he still outsourced a lot of the negotiating to, again, Republican establishment people within Congress who are more aligned with business interests than his base. I wish we could do it all over again. And I'll tell you what, when Biden comes out running on the immigration front, our backs are going to be against the wall. That is, if President Trump loses, and we hope he doesn't.
Well, the first thing the Democrats are going to do is legalize all the DACA individuals here. They're going to give them not a pathway to citizenship. They're going to give them a front door glide path to citizenship. It's going to be done before the 2022 midterms. It's going to be done so they can all be citizens and register to vote. It's the first thing they're
irreversible. It's irreversible. When
exactly. It's over. It's just like when Reagan did it in 86. I mean, it was like, oh, well, this is going to be the final time. It's never the final time. It just encourages it. They're going to do that. That's done. Add another, I don't know how many people are here. There's varying numbers, but it's, a couple of million. So add them to the Democratic rolls. Done. And then the next thing they're going to do is get rid of the filibuster in the Senate. That's the next thing they're going to do. And then they're going to make Washington, D.C. a state, get 2 more liberal senators there.
Add 2 more seats, yep.
Yep. As soon as they do that, they're going to make Puerto Rico a state, add 2 senators there. Then they will have baked the cake in the Senate. Republicans will never control the Senate again. Then they'll do redistricting in the House. They'll bake the cake there, so they'll have the House for 3 decades, and then they'll start to change the Electoral College so 4 big cities can elect the president. If Biden wins,
up next.
If Biden wins, and then they're going to open up the borders, right? Because after they do this, they're going to be like, everybody that comes in, we'll put them on welfare. They're a Democratic voter. Do you realize that we are staring this down at like the barrel of a gun? 100 days away, RJ? I mean, what I just outlined is not, this is not like doomsday Alex Jones info wars. This is like, we're facing it now. I mean, we're a legitimate news and information network. This is what we're facing in 100 days, RJ.
No, I agree completely. I mean, these are warnings we've given to even the Republican establishment up here that aren't completely aligned with us, at least on our issue. But there are other issues as well that have led to this point. I mean, again, obviously the COVID crisis that's going on right now, that there's little he could do to control. I honestly think at that point, people are ignoring a lot of good results that are coming and, a lot of deaths that are decreasing and everything simply because Orange Man bad and they want to beat him. It's a real shame. But again, we're just hopeful the administration stays on course and doesn't try to cater to a lot of people that will never vote for him while alienating his base. one kind of other thing on the DACA front as well, as you mentioned, amnesty encourages illegal immigration. We've seen almost a 90% uptick in border apprehensions since April. There was a huge drop, obviously, due to the coronavirus crisis, but the numbers are increasing every month. And the moment he starts aggressively floating the DACA thing, just beyond little press conference and interview comments, if they actually go down the path, those numbers will skyrocket. From a country like Mexico, which is having a terrible situation on the COVID front, we're seeing people crossing the border for medical care, and some of the highest death tolls are in border counties in Texas. That is going to increase this at a terrible time. Now is not the time to utter the A word at all.
RJ Hauman, thanks for being with us. We're out of time. I really appreciate your coming on and your insight. And look, great scathing press release yesterday on these online college visas, which is a complete scam led by Wall Street and the cheap labor crowd. And you called it out. It's got nothing to do with education. It's all to do about colleges getting money and cheap labor for Wall Street so they can screw the American worker. RJ, thank you.
Thanks, John.
More information, go to fair.org, fair.org.